Welcome back to Homebody, the podcast that explores the intersections of the nervous system, trauma healing, and somatic self awareness. I'm Anna, and today we are talking about one of my favorite frameworks for understanding the body, the polyvagal ladder. If you've ever wondered why you feel shut down one moment, then anxious the next, or why it can be so hard to move from the freeze into that state of calm, then this episode is for you. We're going to explore how the nervous system moves in this hierarchical pattern through different states from dorsal vagal shutdown to sympathetic activation and finally into ventral vagal safety. And most importantly, I'll walk you through how to support yourself at each level so you can climb that ladder safely back up without bypassing your body's needs. So let's start with the basics. The polyvagal theory was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, which outlines three primary states of the autonomic nervous system. We have our dorsal vagal shutdown freeze response, which is that state of collapse, disconnection, numbness, or fatigue. And this is where your system perceives overwhelming threat and essentially powers down. It's where we conserve all of our energy in order to just maintain life to get through this difficult situation. Next, we have our sympathetic or mobilization state. This is where we have our fight or flight response. Your body is activated, alert, often anxious or angry. And this is the energy of survival. This is our taking action state. This is where all of our energy stores are kind of mobilized so that we can run really fast, fight really hard, or flee our attackers. And then lastly, we have our ventral vagal state of safety and connection. So a state of calm presence and social engagement. This is where we feel grounded, joyful, intimate, and connected to other people. The key idea is that these states are hierarchical. You can't skip steps on the ladder. So if you're in that dorsal vagal state, you have to first pass through sympathetic energy before accessing that ventral vagal sense of safety. So why is this ladder or concept so important? Because it really helps us understand why healing isn't always about going from shutdown to calm, from anxious to calm. It's often an uncomfortable middle step, sympathetic activation. And this can feel really scary if we don't know what's happening. So if you're in dorsal vagal shutdown, feeling foggy, numb, hopeless, or frozen, the next move your body will naturally make is into that mobilization state. That means you might suddenly feel agitated, anxious, panicked, restless, and you're not doing it wrong. You haven't regulated wrong if you're actually feeling this. You're actually climbing that ladder, that hierarchical ladder, so that you can get back to that sense of safety. So understanding that transition helps us avoid shame or fear around those in-between states, and it gives us a map of our nervous system to help us be more compassionate, to reduce fear, to actually understand how we can regulate in a sustainable and effective way. So let's bring this down to earth. Here's how these three states often feel. Dorsal vagal, the bottom of the ladder, you feel flat, numb, dissociated. Life feels really hard or pointless. Your body may feel heavy, slow, or distant. You may withdraw from people or responsibilities. That middle rung of the ladder, the sympathetic activation of mobilization, is where you feel anxious, restless, wired. You may feel angry, irritable, or overwhelmed. Your heart rate is increased. Your breath gets shallow and fast. And you want to take action. You want to be doing to fix, escape, or control. Now, the very top part of that ladder, the ventral vagal section, is where you feel present, safe, and socially connected. Your breath is steady, your muscles feel fluid, you can move and think and respond clearly instead of reacting. You feel joy and creativity or groundedness in this state. Now, each of these states is a response to how safe or unsafe your nervous system actually feels in each moment to moment. So we need to be able to access each of these states when we need them, right? So we can't always be in that ventral vagal state of safety because life has challenges and things that we need to mobilize ourselves to take action on, and things can become overwhelming. So we need to be able to move into that energy conservation state of dorsal vagal from time to time as well. So here's where the real magic happens. How do we actually move between these states in a way that is actually supportive and trauma informed? So if we're looking at that move between from dorsal vagal to sympathetic, this transition often involves bringing up energy gently. So we want to start to mobilize our energy because we're in that energy conservation state. So we don't have enough energy. We actually need to increase and mobilize our energy. So we can use gentle movements like rocking, stretching, standing up slowly, making our arms move out wide. We can use tools like naming what you feel without judgment. So I feel really far away, but I'm starting to notice that. I don't feel connected to my body. I feel a sense of coldness in my extremities. You can also use sensory input. So I highly, highly recommend when you're in a dorsal vagal state to use heat. So you want to increase your energy. If you think about being in a sauna and then making yourself sweat, that is all of your energy stores being mobilized because you're increasing your heart rate. So you can use warmth. You can use music to kind of that builds over time. So matching your heartbeat or heart rate to music as well. And sunlight. Sunlight is going to be a beautiful way to start to increase energy in a really gentle manner. Once we have moved in that sympathetic state, we now have to utilize this mobilized energy. We have too much energy now. So we went from not having enough energy to having too much energy. So we can start to use frenetic and more energetic ways. So we're going kind of like building like a wave. So we start with gentle movements, we start with heat, we're starting to increase our energy. And now that we're in that sympathetic state, now we can utilize that energy in a much more frenetic way. So I want you to think of shaking, dancing, doing kind of like air squats or running on the spot, skipping up and down, body weight movements. You can try walking, running, going for a jog. And this is a really beautiful way to start to kind of wind back what your nervous system wanted to do before it got overwhelmed. So we move into that fight or flight response. And at some point you're like, I've got to get out of here, or I need to attack this thing that's in front of me. Now is your opportunity to do that. So listening to what your body actually wanted to do in that moment before it got overwhelmed can really allow you to inform how you move in through this sympathetic state. So once you have utilized that energy, and you will feel that you want to kind of tire yourself out a little bit, but you can generally notice a shift in your nervous system from that kind of frenetic energy to just like that water coming down from boil, the bubbles start to get smaller and smaller. So this is where you want to start to invite regulation into your space. So we can start to slow down our exhales. We can try slow rhythmic movements like walking or swaying. Co-regulation across all of these states is going to be really, really powerful. So making eye contact with a safe and trusted other, co-regulated breathing or co-synchronized breathing. Grounding, pressing your feet into the floor, feeling your seat on the chair. So feeling the back of your body is really powerful. And then we also want to look at ways that once we're in that ventral vagal state, how do we actually expand that? How do we build resilience? How do we actually anchor into safety? So there are really strong anchors that we can utilize, like smells, songs, breathing practices that help you return here. Scent and music are really powerful ways to utilize like something external from yourself to regulate your nervous system. They're kind of innate human regulation rituals that we can utilize. We can also build daily routines of safety. So morning sun, connection, movement. We can practice noticing glimmers, and just back to that daily routines. Listen back to my 3-minute morning reset podcast if you haven't yet, because I walk you through a morning routine to regulate your nervous system on that one too. So go and check out that episode if you haven't done that already. And then lastly, for expanding our sense of safety and anchoring into that ventral vagal state, practice noticing glimmers. So glimmers are tiny moments of joy or connection. They're kind of like the opposite of triggers. And these could be anything that kind of incite that feeling of warmth or a smile on your face. So for example, I love seeing, especially amongst cityscape, like flower kind of popping out in between the pavement, right? That just reminds me that nature is such a force to be reckoned with, and that always makes me feel so, so happy. Or maybe it's the smile of my husband and seeing the eye crinkles, like that just fills me with so much joy. Imagine getting wrapped up in his arms in a big bear hug, right? Deb Dana calls this process befriending the ladder, not trying to force yourself up it, but gently inviting your system to climb it when you are ready. So let's wrap up this episode. If you are feeling stuck, shut down, overwhelmed, you are not broken. I cannot say this enough. You are on the ladder, and every step that you take to bring in sensation, rhythm, and connection is a step towards regulation. You don't have to jump from numbness to joy. You just have to climb up one rung at a time. And with patience, with curiosity and with compassion for the wisdom of the body, you will move back into that state of ventral vagal safety. But it does take some time. So if this episode helped you see yourself more clearly, help you make sense in the world, I'd love to hear from you. Share it with someone who's navigating the ladder too, and come say hi on Instagram at Anna the Anxiety Coach. Until next time, on where you're at and trust the climb.